In my opinion, the Democrats have gone very far away from Israel. You vote for a Democrat, you're being very disloyal to Jewish people, and you're being very disloyal to Israel. And only weak people would say anything other than that.
What the president has done is he has taken positions on Israel that are to the right of the spectrum, very much longtime conservative pro-Israel asks, be it moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, essentially ending American aid and support for the Palestinians. You name it, the president has taken these positions that have pleased the pro-Israel right in the American Jewish community. And he's thought that that would give him some political benefit, that somehow that would move Jewish American voters to his side of the column. But in the most recent elections, in the 2018 midterms, 79% of American Jews voted for Democrats, one of the highest percentages we've ever seen, certainly in the midterm election. And so the president's frustrated, and his right-wing backers are frustrated. And so when the president was asked about this and spoke about this, he essentially said that American Jews, I'm pro-Israel and you're not voting for me, therefore you're disloyal. And it came out as disloyal to America. He then the next day clarified disloyal to Israel, which of course makes it even more complicated because American Jews are American, we're not Israeli. My family came here at the turn of the last century, has been here for well over 100 years. My grandfather was in World War II. We're Americans, so for the president to say that we're disloyal to Israel not only misses the mark on the loyalty question, but also on whose country we actually are citizens of. So right now, we're really in a struggle here in the U.S., in particular in the Jewish community, about how to define anti-Semitism. And there's been a debate for the last several years that anti-Semitism is tied mostly to anti-Israel rhetoric. And that anti-Israel rhetoric has been described as being led by the movement to promote boycott, divestment, and sanctions of Israel, BDS. And so that's what the frame has been. Yet in the past couple of years, we've seen a rise in domestic terrorism against Jewish institutions and communities, a rise in essentially anti-Semitism here at home. My hometown synagogue, Tree of Life in Pittsburgh, was the scene of the worst anti-Semitic incident in the history of the United States. So these two competing anti-Semitism arguments are what's playing out. And politically, the pro-Israel community has really committed itself to fighting BDS and has not totally committed itself to fighting anti-Semitism here at home. And so the president has talked about Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, two Muslim American congresswomen who support BDS, and said because they're Democrats, the Democrats also support BDS and are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. And that misses the point of what's happening to the American Jewish community here at home, which is that we are on the receiving end of many direct anti-Semitic attacks, verbal and physical, here. And that has nothing to do with Israel policy. The question about the Israel-related vote and the Jewish vote has shown itself to be one where American Jews care about what the broader American electorate cares about. We care about education, the economy, healthcare, the environment, social issues. That's how American Jews vote. We don't vote on Israel. And certainly when it comes to Israel voters, those who are most committed to voting on Israel are most often in the most ideologically right-wing position. What seems to be happening is that at this stage, the president is using Israel as a political argument to his evangelical base and saying that he is the most pro-Israel because he is aligned with the hard-right positions of the Israeli government, and that for him, that now is a litmus test that he passes, not with American Jews necessarily, but with evangelical supporters of Israel, whose interests in Israel are not identical with the American Jewish community, and they're not identical here at home in terms of American domestic policy. So we're seeing the morphing of the Israel policy that the U.S. takes as to one that more looks towards the evangelical base than it does to the Jewish American community. And from the long-term perspective, that type of bond, if that phrase, that harms Israel's long-term interest, and it also disconnects the United States Jewish community from Israel in ways that we can't predict, but could be damaging to both of our collective interests. So for the broader American Jewish electorate, the vote tracks with broader American concerns overall. And so what that means in the upcoming election is that American Jews are going to vote for those candidates who reflect their values here at home. And right now, that is trending towards the Democrats because President Trump here domestically has taken positions that run squarely against much of the Jewish community's views, which are very progressive. It's no coincidence that something like 32 members of Congress are Jewish, and of those, 2 are Republican and 30 are Democratic, and that's been the way it's been for a long time. So in the upcoming election, Democrats see a lot of space to appeal to American Jewish voters and take a position on Israel that's critical of the Israeli government, not of Israel as a population, as a country, but of the current Israeli government, and feel like they are not taking a political risk with the American Jewish vote. That is something very distinctive, and that's a new phenomenon. Relations with the Israeli government are strong, but relations right now for Israel in the Middle East and for Israel globally are weak. And Israel, it needs to have an America that supports Israel, not just on very narrow policies that Israel wants to advance, but also in integrating Israel into the global community in a real, meaningful, and sustainable manner. Israel's international relations, they're getting along well with narrow dictatorships, but they're having trouble in terms of advancing the way they want to be positioned in the Middle East over the long run with peace with its neighbors. And that's where the United States can play an indispensable role. So I would recommend that the president really think bigger picture about Israel and try to figure out a way to go towards his instincts. And his instincts were to promote Middle East peace. He talked about that on the campaign trail, but to put in place a policy that actually brings the Palestinians in. Right now, the Palestinians are rejecting any engagement with us because they don't see us as a credible partner, and that harms Israel's long-term security. You know, at the core of this, for Israel, there's been this ongoing existential question about what kind of country will it be? Will it be a Jewish state or a democracy, or can it be both? And right now, it's trending towards a situation where it will be a Jewish state, but it will lose its democracy. Nearly half of the people that live in Israel and the West Bank and Gaza are Arabs, including within Israel, Arab Israelis, and many of them are disenfranchised because of the occupation. They don't have the right to vote. That's not good for Israel's long-term interest, and as a good friend, the United States, we should be promoting, pushing, supporting, cajoling, and doing everything we can to help Israel get to that peaceful outcome so it can maintain its Jewish character and its democratic character.